This is the glass fortress of New York City, a bulletproof skyscraper, also known as One World Trade Center. But why is it so fortified, and how? Let's find out. On February 26, 1993, a Ryder truck rode into the parking garage of the original World Trade Center and unleashed more than 1,500 pounds of explosives. It killed 6 people and injured more than 1,000. That's where our first safety measure comes into play. The original World Trade Center was set back from the street only 25 feet. But now, this new World Trade Center is set back up to 90 feet away from West Street here, which is the modern-day West Side Highway. At the first 20 stories, this looks like any other normal skyscraper. However, it's entirely windowless. 186-foot tall base made out of 70 tons of steel. It's meant to deflect and absorb any attack from a vehicular bomb. Covered in glass planes instead. Now, each of them are 13 foot tall, and there's over 2,000 of them. But if we get very close, we can see how strong these glass panes are. They're made out of automotive safety glass, and they're extremely thick, basically making them bulletproof as well. The base is also concrete, 200 by 200 feet, almost the same exact footprint of the original World Trade Center. However, the main safety feature is within the core of One World Trade Center. But before we talk more about that as we go inside this skyscraper, let's talk about why it's so heavily fortified in the first place. For that, we have to go back to September 11th, 2001. I was actually here in New York City that day. I lived in Jackson Heights, Queens. I remember riding the car with my dad down Northern Boulevard, heading back home, and I could see the gigantic plume of smoke covering the New York City skyline. It was a very terrible day. Many thousands of people lost their lives. It's a sight I will never forget. And here's a reminder of that terrible tragedy. Let's go right over here and take a closer look. This is one of the original footprints of the Twin Towers. It's now a memorial called Reflecting Absence, designed by Michael Arad. Here are among more than the 2,900 people who lost their lives, their names etched along the original footprint of the building. Now, the question in most people's minds is, why did the towers collapse, especially so quickly after the impact of the planes? Well, the common assertion is that the steel beams melted due to the extreme high heat of the jet fuel. However, there was also more than 2,000 people trapped in the upper floors. Upon the impact of the plane, the original core, which was steel covered in sheetrock, began to be covered in smoke, and it was blocked so people can make their way down the stairs. That's why so many people lost their lives. This is where the construction for One World Trade Center ended up being very different. They needed to reinforce that core in a way that has never been done before. But for that, let's go inside One World Trade Center and see the view from the top. So these marble slabs actually cover the reinforced steel base of One World Trade Center. Hey, how's it going? a depiction of the Manhattan schist, which the actual One World Trade Center is built, standing on the bedrock of New York City. All right, let's go up the elevator. So this elevator ride shows you the entire progression of New York City being constructed all the way from the early 1700s till modern day. So I feel my ears popping right now. We're passing by 1950s. We see the bridges already constructed. A lot of the glassy skyscrapers started to be built. We see the windowless skyscraper, 33 Thomas Street, which I made another video on. Check it out. And here,
welcome to One World Observatory.
The 102nd floor. Let's go. Hey, awesome. Cool, thank you. So here we have arrived to the observation deck where we can see full 360 views of New York City and New Jersey as well. Here we're seeing Jersey City. Now, 90% of the offices in this structure receives natural light due to its unique shape. It starts as a cube in the bottom and ends as a cube on the top, but it's 8 isosceles triangles in the middle, and right in the middle it makes a perfect octagon. Let me show you views of Midtown Manhattan. So the concrete core is what really fortifies the structure. We can't really see it for its full worth. We will have to go into the emergency staircases. But Edward de Valle, who was the director of design management of the structure, claimed that it was the strongest concrete engineered in New York City. The concrete was poured in Brooklyn and had to be delivered here to the construction site within 90 minutes. Now, the core is what houses the emergency staircases, the elevators, the communication lines, also the electric and water lines, and a specific elevator for any fire emergencies. That's the hidden stronghold of this building here in One World Trade Center, but leads to these unimaginable views from up top. And we can actually see a few of the other skyscrapers we talked about in this series. So right over here we have the windowless skyscraper, 33 Thomas Street, also known as the AT&T Long Lines building. And we see magnificent views of the Midtown Manhattan skyline. And here we see the Brooklyn Bridge and Manhattan Bridges. Brooklyn, right after, we see Dumbo, we see the Brooklyn Navy Yard, right down there, the Brooklyn Navy Yard. We have Williamsburg, Brooklyn, right over there with the Williamsburg Bridge. We see the skyline there in the distance of Queens of Long Island City. Lots of the iconic skyscrapers here in downtown Manhattan. We see the little chapel that stood that actually managed to survive the collapse of the original towers. And let me show you a little bit further down. Here we see Governor's Island right down there, Battery Park. And here we see the Statue of Liberty there in the distance, and actually the Staten Island Ferry heading over to the 5th borough of New York City, Staten Island. And of course, one of the longer bridges in the entire United States of America, the Verrazano Narrows Bridge. And since it's such a perfect clear day, we can see all the way down to Coney Island, which is actually very impressive. And we can even see towards New Jersey. And we can even see the full Far Rockaway and Rockaway Peninsula. Wow, that's impressive. So right here, we're standing at the strongest skyscraper of New York City. A perfectly fortified glass fortress standing in the middle of a major city. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Ariel with Urbanist. Keep being awesome and always keep on exploring.